I'm going to walk through doing card number 2 using Flexbox. So again, Flexbox is designed to spread things out, center them, align them, rather than just taking a box and adding margins and paddings. Flexbox kind of works by distributing space. And in fact, you'll be best off if you avoid adding especially margins to things, as it can really mess with your notion of distributing space. All right, so I have once again started with a sketch. I decided to change up the design just to make it interesting. Same basic idea. I'm going to have a top, a middle, and a bottom. My description across the top, my name and tagline in the center, and then socials, phone, and a little bike logo across the bottom. So that is kind of the concept. And I can start, if I would like, in my Flex code generator. So this is going to be, notice I can change the tag. I'm going to change that to main. And then this is card 2. Actually, I'm going to get rid of the main and just make it card 2. That'll make my CSS really simple, just uses the card 2. Now, if I go back to my image, my first boxes are going to be top, middle, bottom. So I'm going to change it to column. And then I can center bottom, but I want to spread them out, space between. So that'll spread out my top, my middle, and my bottom. If I wanted to, I could give these sizes. So I could say, like, this thing should be 0.375 inches, or actually this only works in pixels. So let's say 64 pixels high. And then this guy could be 64 pixels high. And that will give it a size so I can see what it would look like. The second box, I can click Nested Flex, and I give it 3 children. Those are going to be horizontal, and I'm going to spread them out. And I probably want them at the end of the space so they go to the very bottom of the card. All right, so that looks like that. And then this one is going to have my 2 items, which I want to center and center. If I made this bigger, well, it doesn't matter. We don't need the size. All right, so that's kind of the gist. And here is my generated Flexbox code, which I can go ahead and copy. And I can paste that into here. All right, I can also paste the HTML. It could be kind of a nightmare to paste the HTML, but yeah, I'm actually going to do the HTML from scratch. Well, we can paste it, why not? And I'm going to save it so it indents. All right, so now this should just be empty because I didn't put anything in there. And I can remember what I wanted to put. So my first box was going to be the certified bike fitter. I can change that to a span so that it fits. There we go, just like that. And then the second thing I was going to have was my Phineas Bates. So I'm going to replace this with Phineas Bates. And I'll replace this with Fitter to the Pros. I'm just pasting in some of the information from the previous one. Oh, oops. So I've got main, div, and then the third thing I'm going to have, I'll do my Phineas Fits here. social. And then I could do the contact here. And my last thing I could do is my bike. All right, so let's see. Card 2, and let's just make sure that that bike is small. All right. So it looks like I made some fundamental mistake, and I'm not sure what it is. Let me take a look here. So I've got card 2. For some reason, my Flexbox is not working at all. And let's see what I did wrong. So there, I have on card 2 display flex, column space between. I made an HTML error. So if I look here, everything is in that first div. I must have forgotten to close the div or made a typo. And in fact, I did. There we go. Save that. Now, everything looks right. It is worth inspecting when you're wondering what's going on. So now, if I hover, I see main. And as I expected, I've got 3 children of main, which are spread out. And then I have the second one and the last one. And I can see I've got a line item stretch, and that's actually the reason this is wrong. I clicked the wrong box in my builder. If I click here, this is very much like my builder, but live. And I can see, oops, not align content, align items center is what I wanted. And it tells me align content doesn't do anything. So it's align item center is what I did wrong there. Easy to make that typo. I also don't have any rule on the first one. So card 2, nth child 1 would be the first item. And I'm going to go ahead and make that a Flexbox 2. And if I do make that flex, it says flex in the inspector, and I can click here and say align item center, justify content center, and it will center that whole thing. Which is pretty much what I want. I guess I have this certified bike fitter. I don't know why I have that tag. That extra tag is causing complexity, so I'm just going to remove it because it doesn't matter to me. There we go. And I can also add a few more classes to make it easier to do some styling. I'm going to add a top to my top. I'll add a middle, bottom. I could change all these to be top, middle, bottom, but they're fine. I can leave them. So I can just go here, card 2 bottom and card 2 top. And the first thing I would recommend is making those both the same height. And the reason for that is that way when we look at the Flexbox, we're going to see now it gets perfectly centered because the 2 items take up the same amount of space. So they look kind of right together. Okay. Oh, I forgot to use my Flexbox on the middle. So if I say title top flex, align, line item center, justify content center, and we can get rid of the aligned content. There we go. So that's the rule I want for that. And I can copy that rule and paste it, and now that will get centered. Very nice. I could then go ahead and add a color to my background. We'll use that color there. All right, so that's kind of got a color to it. This centering looks pretty good. So now what I want to do is just come in and get a little bit more obsessive. And if I look at this, I can see the spacing is kind of doing what I want. So my middle space looks about right. My bottom space doesn't really look right yet. And there's a few things that are wrong. There's no space around the outside. And then the items are they're aligned to the bottom, but the bicycle is not on the bottom, so I want to fix that. So my first thing I want to do to the bottom is I'm just going to add padding left, padding right, padding bottom. Oh, oops, I didn't want to do that. Shoot, I did that to the card bottom and the card top. Hold on, let me do that just for the bottom. So we'll make a rule for the bottom. And anytime I'm messing around with box sizing, I probably want to add box sizing border box. Okay, so that's getting closer. We've now added some space around it. 16 might be too much, actually. We're going to cut those down to 8. All right, very nice. So that's pretty good. The next thing that's kind of bothering me is the center of the bottom. The contact info is not centered. Oops, I just want to do that on my second card. So card 2, contact inner, text align center. So that now centers that, which looks a little bit better. I'm going to go to the whole bottom and make it smaller font. All right, so it is less important. Good. And now, if you're like me, the fact that these aren't centered is going to really bother you. So the problem is what Flexbox does is it evenly distributes the space. So if my left-hand column and my right-hand column are different sizes, then the spacing being even is not going to center the thing in the middle. So I've got currently social is on the left, and then I don't have anything on the right there. I'm going to actually go ahead and give those meaningful class names just to make it clear. So this is social left, and this is right. And then I can make a rule that says card 2 bottom left, and oops, actually we'll do for both, and card 2 bottom right. So that says the right in the bottom in the card and the left in the bottom of the card. And we're going to make these both have identical widths. Once we do that, the middle gets perfectly centered. So if we look, this is now 75 pixels, this is now 75 pixels. I probably could have made it smaller than that. Let me remove the width and see. This is 50 and the image is 64. So we could have made it 64 pixels just to fit the image. But it doesn't really matter because as long as they're the same, our centered part is going to be perfectly centered. So now these should line up. Perfect. So if I were to draw a line right down the middle of this, it would in fact come right down the middle. The last thing that should be bothering you if you're like me is this bike. And the bike, the problem is the image is a square. And what I want is for the image to be at the bottom of that square. but it is not. So there are, you could look up the right clipping properties. I'm a little tempted to just try adding negative margins to this. So if I just change this to display block, I can then adjust the box model on it, if we remember our good old box model. And I can do margin right, and that fails. I can do margin bottom, which works. So I think a margin right fails because this whole right item already has a margin right. But the margin bottom will work. And I can get it to line up about with the 555s. So negative 11 did that. And then if I go to the right and up there, I can do a margin right. And that in fact works. So now if I look at the bottom, I can highlight the whole area and I can make sure that my bike wheel just hits it. So I want the bottom right to be negative 11 pixels. And I guess I don't actually currently have a rule for that. Bottom right, margin right, negative 11 pixels. Move bike over since image isn't cropped. And then I could do or right image, margin bottom, negative 11 pixels. I forget if it was 11. Let's see what I said. It was 11 and 11. Perfect. So it would have been a lot easier if I just cropped that image, but that's okay. That works. So that one block is wrong, but if I look at the whole box looks about right. Ooh. There we go. All right, and now I think I'm all the way done. So I've got, ooh, that still doesn't look. I guess 11 was the wrong number. I want it to be 14. All right. There we go. So now I've got my bike right at the bottom right. These guys, even spacing, evenly centered. And what I did is I used Flexbox to do all the arrangement. One last note here, just while we're looking at this. If we had put margins on items, it will mess with your Flexbox. So let's say, for example, that this div, instead of being a div, I used an H1. Or actually, let me put it on the middle. If I made that into an H1, this has a margin before and after. Actually, this is a bit of a bad example because it is so big we can't see the distortion, but make it smaller. Well, actually, okay, that one was fine because the margin was even on bottom and top. So never mind, not actually so dangerous. If I had put, let's say, a margin top of 2M on there, now it messes everything up because the centering happens without respect to the margin. So I guess that's the risk of margins, but in fact, never mind. The margin on both sides, not really a problem. Still, I maintain it's easier if you just don't have any margins on there. So if you make that back into a div, certainly makes it easier to work with. And we can adjust those sizes. And, okay, not that big. The spacing will still remain even no matter what we do, as long as there's room. So whenever you're using Flexbox, I recommend opening the inspector and looking at those purple spaces. The purple spaces show you how the browser is distributing, and you should be happy with that purple sort of fitting what your designer's eye wants to see. If it doesn't, that's when you've got to get obsessive and fiddle around with it. Like, for example, this bicycle is only working because I fixed the height of the bottom. If I were to remove that height rule, the bicycle now is so much bigger than the area my eye sees it as taking up that it would bother me. So when I fix the height, now these things take up about the space that I want them to, and that purple space kind of aligns with my mind's eye telling me what the purple space should be. All right.